Hello my fellow gamers, GamerDude back once again and welcome to today's video. So today we are talking about a trending thing, and that is video game movies. Now, a lot of people have a lot of contradictory views on video game movies, but me personally, I love video game movies. Well, some of them anyway. And today in this video we are going to talk about some of the best ones and some of the worst ones. Now, these are just in my personal opinion, so I am prepared for criticism in the comments below. Which, by the way, don't hesitate to drop any comments below, because, you know, this is one of those discussion videos where you have to just comment. So before we kick things off, I want to give a huge shout out to all my subscribers, old and new. I want to thank you all so much for the love and support and for helping me reach that goal of 1,000 subscribers. I can promise you this week, now we are back after a week's hiatus after my granddad's funeral, we will be doing a lot of content. I'm also going to be doing a chat and hangout stream before I am too unwell to actually speak. I mean, I don't know if you guys can tell, but I'm coming down with a bit of a cold. It sucks, but yeah. So then, let's get down to business and talk about some of the worst ones straight away. So, kicking things right off, I'm going to go with Max Payne in 2008. Now, if you were a fan of the Max Payne game series, you know the games weren't too brilliant. And the fact that they brought this into a movie it really just put me off the series and the games altogether. I mean, Max Payne, okay, if you're into that sort of dark, gothic, emo-y stuff, then okay, it's not bad. Or maybe if you're into just a cheap version of GTA, then okay, it works. But for me personally, you know, it really doesn't work. There's just so much wrong with Max Payne. I mean, it's not really a definitive game. While yes, the game did have some brilliant voice talent with Mark Wahlberg as Max Payne, Mila Kunis as Mona, and Biora Bridges as BB Hensley, it really doesn't outweigh the benefits, or the downfalls, should I say. I mean, despite an incredible voice cast, the game was absolutely terrible. I mean, the movies themselves were terrible, so why they made a game of it, I really do not know. I mean, if you don't know what it is, it's a third-person shooter, obviously based on Max Payne 1 and Max Payne 2. The series is just based around Max Payne, a police detective turned vigilante after his family's been murdered by drug dealers. Sounds an awful lot like The Punisher, to be fair. Speaking of, we'll talk about the Punisher game a little bit later in this video. But it was one of Rockstar Games' early attempts at like the big 3D open world thing after GTA 3. And I really think they were just trying to take their name away from Grand Theft Auto. They wanted to bring out other titles. And it just didn't work. I mean, I don't know how many times I'm going to be saying it didn't work in this video, but I can imagine it's going to be quite a lot. So the first game in the series was released back in 2001 for the PS2, Xbox, etc, etc. A different version was also released on the Game Boy Advance. But, you know, Game Boy was a big thing back then, so I suppose why the fuck not? The sequel was entitled Max Payne 2: The Fall of Max Payne, which released in 2003 for the Xbox and PS2. Now, in 2008, the movie adaptation, which was loosely based on the games, did feature Mark Wahlberg, Mila Kunis, in the roles of Max Payne and Mona, same as the games. Now, Max Payne 3 was developed by Rockstar Studios on May 15th of 2012 for Xbox 360 and PS3. Now, looking into this, these games really didn't receive a lot of money. You know, they barely broke 200,000 on release day. So I don't see why they continued making them. You know, maybe Rockstar thought, oh, okay, we'll make one more, see how it works. And then it finally kicked in 10 years later that it wasn't working, so they just stopped doing them altogether. So moving on from Max Payne because I just can't bear myself to talk about it. It is so awful. We move on to another terrible video game movie adaptation, and some people may disagree with me on this, but I really didn't like it. Assassin's Creed. Now, I personally, okay, I haven't played too many of the Assassin's Creed games, so I can't really comment or speculate on this altogether. But I played Assassin's Creed 1 and 2, and I did sort of enjoy them until I got rather bored and just couldn't get into the story, so I just gave up on Assassin's Creed altogether. So I figured, you know what? There's a movie out. I'll give the movie a go. Maybe the movie will get me back into the games. Yeah, it really didn't. Other than the lead actor, Michael Fassbender, I really didn't enjoy the film. I mean, Michael Fassbender is a fantastic actor. Don't get me wrong. He played Magneto, and that straight away made me want to watch the film because I was like, okay, I've seen him in the X-Men movies. He's a fantastic actor. I want to see this, and it was terrible. The story was slow, the plot was slow, and from what I'd played in the first two Assassin's Creed games, it didn't seem Assassin's Creedy at all. It just seemed like a wannabe rip-off of every other film that was out there at the time. He's out in the streets, he's killing people and everything. And it's like, well, it's just not practical. It's just not what we expect. Because in Assassin's Creed, you expect to be climbing up giant buildings, you expect to be killing people with your sword, you expect to be riding around on a horse, and that just wasn't the thing in the film. It really didn't capture the essence that the games did. But having not played past Assassin's Creed 2, I really want to move on from that subject because, I don't want to get a lot of people in the comments like, well, how can you say that? You haven't even played it, And it's like, well, just give me a minute, give me a chance. So, we now move on to the Batman games. Not the Rocksteady series, because Rocksteady is separate from any video game. I'm talking about the adaptations like Batman Begins, Batman Revenge, and things like that. Now, Batman Begins, obviously, it was a take on Christian Bale's Batman back in 2005. And the game was terrible. The graphics were absolutely awful, which you wouldn't expect from a Batman game, because even the Batman games on the PS1, even they had good graphics for the time. And this one, it just felt like it was rushed. It felt like it had nothing to do with the movie or the story of the movie. It just went its own way. So I'm not too sure why they called it Batman Begins. But it was released in 2005, a day before the release of the actual movie. And it was developed and published by EA Games, well, Electronic Arts. I'm guessing this is before all the microtransactions. But it actually sold quite well. It was one of those games that people thought, okay, I'm going to get this just because it's Batman. It's a Batman game. Everybody loves superhero games. Spider-Man, Batman, Iron Man, etc., etc. And just because it's those iconic characters, you are going to get it. You are going to purchase it. But this is one of those games that really puts doubt on the whole superhero movie adaptation things, because this is a superhero game based on the superhero movie. And I know we're talking about video game movies, but I really want to make it about video game movies and games that have turned into well movies that have turned into video games, if that makes any sense to you. I don't know, I'm losing track of myself. But let's move on to an actual topic, an actual video game movie before I get ahead of myself. Trying to think of what I had next. Just bear with me a second, because yeah, I did script all this because I would no way in hell remember any of this. So just hang on a sec. Okay, sorry about that. I lost my train of thought. Now, on to the next bad video game movie, Prince of Persia. Now, once again, a lot of people may take this the wrong way, but personally, I loved the Prince of Persia games, especially Sands of Time. Sands of Time was my favourite all-time Prince of Persia game. And if you watch the movie, it's just god-awful. It is terrible. I mean, the movie just... Oh, just I don't have words for how bad the movie was. I mean, yes, it had aspects of Prince of Persia in it, but it felt more like they were trying to copy Uncharted than Prince of Persia. I mean, well, they can't copy. Well, actually, they could because the Prince of Persia movie came out as after Uncharted came out, so I suppose they could have been copying that whole thing. I mean, like I said, it was set in like the desert-y area, which is very Prince of Persia-y, but it didn't seem Prince of Persia-like. And as I was saying, a lot of people may disagree with me on this because the reviews for the film were generally mixed. I mean, a lot of people said the film was an improvement over the video game adaptations and gave it praise to the action scenes, humour, and acting performances. I mean, I will give it some credit. The actors for the film were greatly picked. We had Jake Gyllenhaal, Ben Kingsley, Gemma Arterton, I think it was. But once again, it brings me back to the whole Assassin's Creed story. I mean, it just didn't feel like the same thing, you know. It felt like we were watching something else. And a lot of people did say that, like I said, it was an improvement over the games, but nothing beats the game. I mean, if you're going to make a video game movie, at least make it good. And we're going to bring in some of the good ones after we're done with the terrible ones. I'm going to keep them short because, you know, I don't want to make this a long 50-minute video of me chatting shit about video game movies. So, moving on. We have next... Hang on, I lost my place. I'm doing very well at this so far. Doom. So, the lead character for Doom, of course, was Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. And The Rock, he's not a brilliant actor. I mean, okay, the last couple of years he's pulled out some good ones. But he's just an arrogant son of a bitch. You know, he has to have the screen time. He has to be on screen. That's why he made it a big thing about Hobbs and Shaw, even though that was a very terrible movie, but yeah. But the original Doom games were fantastic, and I think the movie really ruined the whole Doom series. I mean, yeah, of course, it was exactly like the game. You know, it had everything that the games had, unlike most of the other bad video game movies that we're probably going to discuss in a little bit. But other than The Rock, I really don't see the appeal to this film. I mean, yeah, you can watch it if you're a fan of the series, and again, most people might disagree with me, but I think people just watched it for The Rock. Because at the time, The Rock, he'd left the WWE, or the WWF as it was called at the time, and he just went into acting, and he was up for anything that Hollywood was pitching him. I mean, next to Carl Urban, who played Bones in the Star Trek movies, or he was in the Thor film. Can't remember what character he played, but I know he was in Thor. I don't think it had much merit to it. It received a lot of mixed reviews, and a lot of people said it was an insult to the game franchise, which I have to agree with. You know, we're not getting off to a great start with these video game movies, are we? But in a little bit, we are going to move off the adaptations and move on to the actual video game movies that aren't based on games. So just bear with me 1 second. I think we're going to get one more bad one out of the way. So Tomb Raider. This will be the last bad one I talk about, and then we'll move on to actual adaptations instead of ones from video games put into movies. Now, once again, a lot of people will probably disagree with me on this, but Tomb Raider, I feel it's one of those that should never have made it into a movie. It's the same with Uncharted. They're making an Uncharted movie, and I don't think it should be done. I think it should be left in the game universe, because games like that, the action can all be programmed in. You know, there's only so much they can do in mocap, so the rest of it they do with computer graphics. And if you're putting that into a movie, then it's all just going to be CGI, and it takes it away from the actual movie element, and it might as well just be a video game. Because Tomb Raider, I mean, I loved the games back on the PS1, don't get me wrong. I found them absolutely hilarious. I mean, who didn't lock the butler in the freezer? Come on. It was super fun. And then later on, as the games developed, it sort of escaped away from the Tomb Raider vibe that we all got used to. And then the movies started coming out, and it's a bad case of, why are you doing this? Why are you ruining this for me? Why are you taking away my childhood, man? But the one I'm talking about, of course, is the one that released in 2018. And other than featuring a couple of well-known actors, it really wasn't all that brilliant, to be fair. And again, people are going to disagree with me madly on that. But if I was a film critic, a video game film, well, a video game film critic, I would have to probably give it a 3 out of 10 because it was just god awful. Now then, anyway, moving on, we are going to be talking about actual video game movies that have nothing to do with, well, video games. So, first of all, I want to talk about one of my favorites, and this is probably going to receive mixed comments. But it is Pixels. Now, Pixels, if you haven't seen it, it's an Adam Sandler film, so any Adam Sandler film is going to be well worth the watch. Adam Sandler, he's hilarious, he is fantastic, he's brilliant. But it also featured Peter Dinklage, Ashley Benson, Josh Gad, Kevin James, who are all fantastic actors. And it gave off that retro arcade vibe, which is really amazing. It's really awesome. I mean, for kids of today, it's probably not so awesome because they're like, what the fuck is that? Or they're like, what the fuck is Gallagher? Or what the fuck is Pac-Man? But to people of my generation, it's what we grew up with. And I still really feel old saying my generation. I'm only 25, so you can imagine how I make myself feel old saying my generation. But still, it's that special team of arcade gamers, that's put together to fight like a mysterious alien race that thinks we went to war with them because we shot video games into space. That's the whole awesome thing of it. What if that actually happened? What if in today's day and age we shot video games into space and aliens actually thought that was us declaring war on them? Can you imagine if we shot Assassin's Creed into space and aliens thought that's how our culture lived? It'd be super hilarious. It'd be super fun to watch them come down and just drop Assassin's Creed stuff on us. But it was the whole vibe of the 80s which really gave it that feel, especially the ending scene with that Donkey Kong thing. I mean, that was absolutely brilliant. It was amazing how they did that. And then, earlier in the film, there's that bit with The Last of Us, where the kid's playing The Last of Us, and Adam Sandler's character's like, what is this? What are you doing? This is the most violent thing I've ever seen. And the kid goes, pretend you're the guy and you don't want to die. That is literally how it goes, it's how it would go in real life, you pretend you're the guy and you don't want to die. Zombie apocalypse rule 101, Pixels is my all-time favorite, and it's number one on my top list of video game movies. If you haven't seen it, I do recommend you check it out. It is a brilliant game. So next, and this is my number 2 on the list, is Ready Player One. Now, Ready Player One was fantastic. It really expanded on the world of VR. I mean, VR today, it's dying. It is still a relatively new thing, but it is dying. I personally haven't played VR. Well, I played it once, and I didn't like it. It gave me a headache. It made me throw up, actually. It gave me motion sickness. But a lot of people do enjoy VR. The Beat Saber, the Arkham one, the Spider-Man one. Actually, there's a lot of VR games, but still, I don't think people are playing it as much. People are playing PC, Xbox, PlayStation, whatnot. I don't think VR's actually taking off. But Ready Player One really put it into perspective. It really said to us, this is what VR can become. Instead of just playing the game, you are the game, and it was fantastic. The movie, again, it had a fantastic array of actors. Simon Pegg, for one. I mean, come on. Simon Pegg in any film, you're gonna want to see a Simon Pegg movie. Even if he wasn't actually a featured character, he was just a voice, it's still Simon Pegg. But it was released in 2018, so it is still a relatively recent thing. But it's a Steven Spielberg movie as well, and Steven Spielberg rips on himself in this movie. He rips on The Shining because he absolutely hated that movie. Sorry, do apologise. Like I said, I'm coming down with a cold. But yeah, it was brilliant. It was fantastic. I loved it. I mean, I always watch it. I can't tell you how many times I've watched it. There's so many references in this movie, which ties it into other movies, but puts it in a video game, which is fantastic. So, moving on, before we talk too much about that, we have some of the Marvel video games, which some are, of course, adaptations from the actual films, but some are standalone titles, like Iron Man, for example. The first Iron Man game back in 2008, it did have a similar story to the first movie, but it was a story of its own. It allowed you to take control of Iron Man, fly around, do the tutorial and fly around. It was super fun. And just battle a load of enemies that had nothing to do with the first movie whatsoever. So in my opinion, this wasn't based on the movie, it was its own video game adaptation. But again, we're going to be straying away from the whole video game movie stuff, so let's talk James Bond. Now, James Bond, I've always loved James Bond. Pierce Brosnan was my favourite James Bond by far, and we've had a lot of games based on the James Bond movies, but one in particular from Pierce Brosnan was separate, and it was based in the James Bond universe, and I think it was a story of a film that didn't get the green light for a film, so they made it into a game. And that was Everything or Nothing on the PS2. Now, Everything or Nothing was flawless. I mean, for the time, the graphics were absolutely beautiful. And I mean, they made another one a couple of years later. It was based on Sean Connery's James Bond. It was From Russia with Love. But again, it had the same title as the movie, but it wasn't the movie. And this is what really gets me about these kind of games. That they make the film and then they make the game, or they make the game and then they make the film. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. In this case, it's good. From Russia with Love, brilliant game, brilliant film. Everything or Nothing, fantastic game. And same with Iron Man, fantastic film, fantastic game. But again, we're straying away from the whole video game movie stuff, and I'm talking about what I want to talk about, which is not what this video is about. So now I'm going to talk about a video game movie that was spawned from an extremely popular game series, Ratchet and Clank. Now, a lot of people are going to disagree with me on what I say regarding this, but I loved it. I love the game and I love the movie, even though the movie was basically just all of the cutscenes of the game put into one, and just filled in some little gaps. But it released back in 2016, and it does seem like time has forgotten this movie release, or this movie debut. It did make a significant loss, and yes, it's packed with weird casting choices, as a Sly Stallone appearance in Ratchet and Clank movie is a sentence I thought I would never have to say. But it's actually not that bad. Once the rebooted origin story is let down and it's on its own 2 feet, it's actually brilliant. It may lack the charm and humour of the PlayStation games, and it's definitely not on the Pixar level when it comes to animation. But it'll kill 90 minutes of your life, 90 minutes that you'll never get back. As much of a backhand compliment that sounds, it's really not. Ratchet and Clank, it's a competent, family-friendly movie that delivers... Well, it just delivers a unique pairing of the Lombrax and the robot to the big screen, and it makes it fun. It makes it something that hadn't been done before. Well, hadn't been done in this way before, because the games were released first and then this came out, and it was a bad case of, okay, I want to play the games now. So I want to talk about a couple more and then we'll bring this video to a close because it's already at 25 minutes and I don't want to bore you guys. So this next one is something I said I would mention. And it is actually a forgotten little gem. It's one of Marvel's older titles, The Punisher. I mean, it let you hit people with sharks. What's not to love about that? The Punisher can be a tricky character to pull off. Unlike Marvel's more straight-laced heroic characters, Frank Castle has no quarrels about blowing bad guys away and blowing their heads off, with an assortment of kick-ass weaponry. The trigger-happy approach has seen him butt heads with the likes of Spider-Man and Deadpool over the years, and makes him a lot more of a difficult character to put out there in the market, especially now Disney owns Marvel. Well, there have been 3 separate attempts to bring Frank Castle to the cinematic universe for more mainstream recognition. None have been quite successful. The first, of course, was starring the mighty Dolph Lundgren, I think it was. And that one didn't really take promise. I mean, I didn't even know about that one until I looked into this. And of course, the second one is the more well-known one from 2004 starring Thomas Jane, which took influence from the Marvel Knights limited series, which is quite hard to pull off because it was technically a comic book movie at the time. But that one also missed the mark despite some real strong points. Now, the last film released was in 2008, and it was The Punisher Warzone, which featured a great turn from Ray Stevenson, but failed to gain much love. Now, the video game was brilliant. Don't get me wrong. You know, feeding people to sharks and feeding people to piranhas and putting them in car compactors was brilliant. But the 2008 movie Warzone was loosely based on this, and it was terrible. You know, Warzone was terrible. It didn't do the game justice, and that's probably why the game has long since been forgotten about, because of this terrible Warzone movie. I mean, I have both The Punisher and The Punisher Warzone on DVD, and I always throw Warzone at a wall because it's terrible. It's just god awful. The next one I want to talk about is Warcraft. Now, of course, it is based on the critically acclaimed World of Warcraft. Now, I played this back when I was in school. I was always trying to find proxy sites and whatnot back in school to play this game. And eventually, I gave up with it. I really gave up with it because all my friends were playing it at home, and I didn't have the internet at the time, so I was just playing it at school via proxy sites. So you can imagine I gave up on it. But World of Warcraft was just ripe for being picked up by Hollywood, and I've got to say it was a fantastic film. Being brushed aside as kind of a Lord of the Rings-esque apade, Blizzard's jewel in the crown is packed with lore in abundance, and it's all guided under the steady hand of indie darling Duncan James. Don't ask me who that was, I just did some research into this and found out that name. It's not only the best performing video game adaptation of all time, well, in terms of writing that is anyway, it earned $433 million at the box office, which is a big deal for a video game movie. It chooses to give the World of Warcraft a pedestal to stand on, and it was brilliant, it was beautiful. I certainly did play World of Warcraft again after watching this film. I mean, I didn't play it for very long because I was a noob, but yeah, you know, I felt like the whole South Park episode being a noob, so I just gave up. But the film does fall down by over-egging the pudding under the creaking weight of its ensemble. But it's still an outliner in the video game movie world. A movie that isn't scared to take a chance. I mean, the producers definitely took a chance with this because it's one of those games where it's an online MMORPG, and you've got to think to yourself when it first came out, it's like, does this work as a movie? Do I need this as a movie? but it really did work and people really loved it. But it chucks a massive budget at an acclaimed director and just let him run riot with this world. And I think we need more of that. We definitely need more of that. So, the next one I want to talk, and I will probably make this the last one, is Detective Pikachu. Now, we all love Pokemon. I mean, even if you haven't played Pokemon, I'm sure you've seen someone watch it, or seen someone play it, or seen adverts for it, or just caught a glimpse of it on TV. Pokemon is one of those standing lines. It is definitive pop culture gaming history. And there's been so many animated movies, there's been so many different games, there's been so many different TV shows of it that we've just lost track of it completely. But Detective Pikachu really broke the fourth wall. I mean, the minute we found out Ryan Reynolds, Deadpool himself, would be voicing the fuzzy little yellow guy, we knew that Detective Pikachu would do justice to the Pokemon brand. Not just because it's Ryan Reynolds, but because it's Pikachu. And although it probably didn't have much to do with the actual Ash Ketchum world of Pokemon, it did feature some cool little references. You know, Mewtwo showed up. It mentioned something about Pallet Town with Mewtwo disappearing from the Johto region. So, even though it didn't directly feature that world, it still had references, which was cool. But the movie focuses on that 21-year-old kid who just wants to find his missing private investigator dad. And he teams up with this Pikachu in the process, which does involve lots of high-cost CGI, I must admit. I don't even want to mention how much they spent on the CGI budget for this movie. But it features a lot of sentimental stuff about family, and most importantly, jokes on Snorlax. But the guy who directed it, Rob Letterman, is in charge of an electric cast. See what I did there? Electric cast, because Pikachu. That includes pop singer Rita Ora, Billy Knightley, Ken Watanabe, and the DJ Diplo. I mean, the movie, it does basically feature Pokemon getting high. But it outweighs it, because it's Pokemon, and it's one of the first live adaptations of the series. We've had all the animated movies and whatnot, but this is probably one of the first live adaptations of it, and it was really good. It was fantastic. It was hilarious. It had a lot of retro Pokemon in it. It had a lot of the newer Pokemon in it. And for someone like me who grew up in the 90s playing the original Pokemon and watching the original Pokemon, it felt extremely nostalgic and I absolutely loved it. Now, a lot of people are going to have mixed reviews with me on all of these that I've mentioned, but personally, that's just my list. That's just what I think. So let me know down in the comments what you guys think. If you agree with me, let me know. If you think I've missed one out that deserved a feature, don't hesitate to let me know. If you've made it this far in the video, congratulations. I haven't put you to sleep. So thank you so much for stopping by. I do appreciate it. Of course, we are back to normal content this week. I'm not sure when I'm uploading this because I'm recording it a few days in advance before I am unable to speak due to heavy coughing, because I am starting to cough, so it won't be too long before I won't be able to get a conversation out or finish a sentence without coughing, so here's hoping, But I'm hoping to do a couple of live streams this week. I'm hoping to do a chat and hangout stream, which I haven't done for a while. Since YouTube updated their terms and conditions, I wasn't able to do one, obviously, because you can't live stream from your phone or laptop without 1,000 subs anymore, which is a bit ridiculous, but yeah. So we're going to get that done at some point this week, so just bear with me on that. Again, it's before I'm able to, not speak at all. But yeah, I think that's it for this video, so once again, thank you all for stopping by, I really do appreciate it. If you are new to the channel and haven't already, make sure you smash the like button and drop me a subscribe. I always sub back to new subscribers and view any content you may be producing. So, yeah, Once again, thank you so much. All my videos are in playlists for your convenience. If you do want to check those out, feel free. This has been Gamer Dude. Happy gaming, and I will catch you all in the next one, guys.